Hello, today we'll be discussing electronic integration in aviation. Electronics have been commonplace in the 21st century, from refrigerators to the smartphone recording this video. In addition to this, aviation has also increased in the 21st century, and it was only time to tell when these two systems would integrate into each other. However, with this integration, many issues have occurred and deaths have occurred from this integration. This led to my thesis, if we should to evaluate the integration of electronics in aviation. And to do this, we will look at the two most common type of electronic integrations, fly-by-wire and glass cockpit systems. And we'll compare this to the supposed benefits. But first, let's gauge the room. Who here has traveled on a commercial aircraft? If you answered yes to this, you have been in danger of these two systems due to the fact that all commercial aircraft utilize these systems of fly-by-wire and glass cockpit. So, a preview of this speech, we will discuss electronic integration in aviation with the two most common types of fly-by-wire and glass cockpit. So, what is fly-by-wire? Fly-by-wire is basically a computer that manipulates control surfaces on the aircraft with data that comes from sensors outside of the aircraft. And the most common type of this is actually autopilot. And in the most recent news would be the MCAS system, which brought to the demise of the 737 MAX. So, before this, I would like to discuss one non-lethal issue with fly-by-wire systems, in which an Airbus actually lost control of, pilots lost control of the aircraft and regained control after 4,000 feet had been lost due to an angle of attack probe, which detects if the aircraft is pitching up and will prevent a stall from occurring, which will bring the aircraft out of the sky. And this had become clogged, which sent incorrect data to the flight computer, which the computer translated as the nose coming up, so it pushed the nose forward, and the only reason this aircraft survived was because the pilots were able to turn off the system. However, in the case of the Boeing 737 MAX, this is not the same, in which the MCAS system, which is a fly-by-wire system, was not turned off by the pilots and led to the demise of both flights for the same reasons of an angle of attack probe. And this is coming from Daryl Campbell, who has created multiple articles about the Boeing 737 MAX, which adds some validity to his claims. So let's recap the fly-by-wire systems. Fly-by-wire systems is an example of electronic integration in aviation. However, we have discussed one case where it compromised the aircraft's safety by pushing the nose down, but was saved by pilots, and one case in the 737 MAX in which the aircraft nose was pushed so far forward it was unable to be recovered by the pilots, which killed everyone on board. Now, what you may ask, what is a glass cockpit? Well, a glass cockpit basically is a screen that prevents flight data to pilots. Issues with glass cockpit have been actually studied by the NTSB, which found that fewer total accidents with glass cockpit equipped aircraft, but a higher fatality rate. This is most likely because the amount of information presented to pilots distracts them from actually aviating. And this is actually proven with a lethal case of distraction of glass cockpit, in which an Air France flight crashed during an emergency because the glass cockpit presented so much information to pilots. The pilots got distracted by that and did not fly the aircraft, and the aircraft then crashed. And this is coming from Nick Oliver, an editor of Harvard Business Review, in which he works mostly on technology-oriented issues such as self-driving cars and glass cockpits, giving him validity when discussing technology in aviation, or in aircraft. To recap, again, glass cockpit is an example of electronic integration in aviation. And glass cockpits actually increase the amount of fatal rates of crashes, but lowers the actual amount of crashes due to the amount of information presented to pilots. And this is nowhere likely to leave because all commercial aircraft have integrated glass cockpit systems into the cockpits. In conclusion, one can see issues associated with aircraft that are equipped with fly-by-wire and glass cockpits due to them being detrimental to the safety of the aircraft. The Boeing 737 MAX is a perfect example of this. However, this will show how aviation actually evolves, because the issue was identified after the two crashes and all other aircraft were then grounded, knowing that this issue would occur. And yes, these systems were created with safety in mind for passengers and comfort. However, when issues do arise with them, they usually are fatal. However, people should not be scared of aviation due to aviation consistently evolving, like I said, from past issues. And these issues usually are resolved within the next couple of years with new technologies and also better ways for training for pilots.